إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح لهذه الأمة فتركها على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا هالك. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah says in the Quran, من المؤمنين رجال صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه فمنهم من قضى نحبه ومنهم من ينتظر وما بدلوا تبديلا. Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 23. In the meaning in English, among the believers are men who have been true to Allah in their promise. Of them, some have fulfilled their obligation, and some of them are still waiting, but they have never changed. Our Islamic history, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, is filled with prime examples of Muslims who have dedicated their lives, men and women. The companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they fulfilled their obligation at times of ease and at times of hardship. At times when dunya was in their hand and the times when dunya was out of their hand. At the times when wealth and at times of poverty. At times of sickness or at times of health and power. Sayyidina Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas had an illness, an ailment in his back. He cannot stand. Yet, he was the commander of a war that they had to carry him lying on his back as he commanded the Muslim army in the war. That did not prevent him from fulfilling his duty. Ja'far bin Abi Talib, as you all know, was carrying the flag of the Muslim army. He had his right hand cut and he held the flag in his left hand that was cut also continued till he met Allah Almighty. Anas ibn Nadr was not able to be at the war, Ghazwat Badr, with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So he said, if I were given the opportunity to fight with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, I would show Allah Almighty the reality of who I am. And on the day of Uhud, the next year, Sa'd ibn Malik met him during the war. And he said to him, where are you going? He said, I'm going towards the army of other enemies of Islam. I can smell paradise. And he went forward and conquered the Kafir's army. And he said, I can smell paradise. As they saw his body after the war, it was filled with 80 wounds. Some of them are sword wounds, some of them with stab wounds, some of them are with various tools that were used during the war, with arrows and spears all over his body. 80 and so wounds on his body. Uthman ibn Affan, during Ghazwat Tabuk, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had to prepare the Muslim army. very hot weather, army of 30,000 fighters had nothing to fight with. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wanted the merchants to prepare the army, to get them geared up for a war, for the battle itself. Weapons, equipment, whatever they need, horses, in order to fight. They had nothing to fight with. Uthman ibn Affan said to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, I will pay for the entire army. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said it to all the merchants, whoever so prepares this army for war, he is granted paradise. And no one spoke back except Uthman ibn Affan. He prepared the entire army. And they fought the war. And then the Prophet ﷺ prayed for him and said to him, Allahumma aghfir li Uthman ma taqaddama min dhanbihi wa ma ta'akhkhar. Oh Allah, forgive Uthman ibn Affan whatever sins he had before and after. So Uthman ibn Affan were granted both opportunities as a winner of paradise and also for his sins to be forgiven. Khalid ibn al-Walid fought all types of wars with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and afterwards. And yet on his deathbed, he used to say, I have fought so many wars and I wish that I could die for the sake of Allah in a war zone. And here I am on my bed, I died like a horse. And in my body, every single part of my body, either there is a cut wound, or there is a stab wound, or there is a spear wound, or is there a shot from an arrow in my whole body, and yet I am forced to die on my bed like a camel, that the eyes of the cowards never sleep. Amr ibn Qais, when he was on his deathbed, they said to him, he started to cry. Then they said to him, why are you crying? He said, I'm not crying because I fear death. I'm not crying even that I'm going to miss out my life. I am crying because I've missed the days where I used to be fasting. I'm going to miss those days of fasting. And I am crying because I missed the nights where I pray the nights. Allah Almighty had said about Ibrahim alayhi salam, Inna Ibrahim kana ummatan qanitan lin-nasi hanifa. In the translation, indeed Ibrahim was a comprehensive leader, devoutly, obediently to Allah, and inclining towards the truth. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said he was a believer himself, that is Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the Sahih al-Bukhari narrates that Ibrahim alayhi salam told his wife Sarah, he said, Ya Sarah, no one on earth is a believer except you and me. Ibrahim was a nation by himself for the type of faith he had carried. أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان يوم الدين. Allah says, ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها وهو مؤمن فأولئك كان سعيهم مشكورا. But whoever desires the hereafter and exerts the effort due to it while he is a believer, it is those whose efforts are ever appreciated. It is said to some of the worshippers, what is the best advice you can give to yourself? He said, I look at the dead and I learn as an example of my faith. One of them was asked, he said, my father used to carry a note with him. And every once in a while, he opens that piece of paper and he looks into it and puts it in his pocket. And then he asked him, what's in this paper? He said, whenever I slow down, I feel that my faith and iman is weak or I'm lazy to give for the sake of Allah. I wrote in this note أحسن عملك فقد دنا أجرك. Get yourself together, soon you will meet Allah Almighty. So whenever he feels slowing down, looks at it, get your act together. That is, prepare yourself as what Allah wanted from you, because soon you will meet Allah Almighty. Imam Ibn Aqil al-Hanbali, he is the Shaykh of Imam Ibn Jawzi. He said, I cannot spare a moment of my life. Either I am writing, or I am reading, or I am studying, or I am trying to visualize, or I am praying, or I am remembering Allah, or I am studying, till if I am totally tired, I feel I cannot stay awake anymore, I would lie on my side and visualize the issues and problems that I have read about in ways and means of solving these issues. Imam Abu Hanifa, as he was during the last few days of his lifetime, he said to his students, let's gather together and solve a certain fiqh issue and discuss it. A certain something that needs to be discussed in order to give fatwa for it. And then when they told him, as your condition, as the way you are now, what's the need for that thing? He said, لَعَلَّهُ يَنْجُو بِهَا نَاجٍ. Perhaps what I give an answer to can save someone from hellfire. My dear brothers and sisters, لعله ينجو بها ناجٍ. We have missed one of the pillars of this masjid. Brother of Othman. He used to stand here to give khutbah. And whenever I had the opportunity to give a khutbah or any khatibs, I have seen him after the khutbah, perhaps most of you've seen him, he elaborates on what is mentioned in the khutbah. And I was wondering, why does he do that? Why does he do this thing? Throughout the years. And when I read this quote of Imam Abu Hanifa, لَعَلَّهُ يَنْجُو بِهَا نَاجٍ, I realized he could pick up what is mentioned, whether it is in a khutbah or it's a lecture that is given here in the masjid, and expresses the thought again to those who are listening, in order, perhaps, wallahu alam, someone could ring a bell inside him and would be guided. I met him here in this masjid. I never knew him before, and I was amazed at his drive and ability to give, regardless of his health issues. And I used to tell him, his breathing was heavy because he's an asthma person, a severe asthma himself. And I sensed from him, said, not only the asthma, several parts of my body are not keeping up with it. And I came across people of that type. Their soul is so strong that their body cannot keep up with their soul. The body is weak, but the soul is running 100 miles per hour. The body cannot reach out, but there is true drive and momentum inside them. Allah Almighty had selected him to meet Allah Almighty on one day. Not in this country, in Istanbul, and he was buried there. Yet, he kept a mark on many of the brothers here, they know him. And yet, what intrigued me and also got my attention, his drive for the youth camp for the children of this community. I was invited once or twice to attend this camp. I gave a speech and I left. But then again, after me and others, he expressed to the children these thoughts and ideas that were summarized to them to get them to understand it. For someone his age, he doesn't need to be in a camp with children, sleeping and eating with them and living this harsh campground somewhere in the desert in Czech and Wafra and all these places. Yet, he can see that the future of Islam is in the new generation of Muslim boys and girls to them, they are the future of Islam. At the time when Islam is challenged in its own territories, he could see that several years ago. And I was wondering, why is he running? Why is he getting himself so much dedicated in a camp with children and, in the desert, and it's the lifestyle we got to live in 2 or 3 days, and sometimes in the hot weather, yet he had a vision to give. And Allah Almighty had selected him. And today, perhaps he is in paradise, inshallah, observing the place he is in. And I ask Allah Almighty to grant him paradise. And it's not for us to feel, Wallahi, he's been good, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, and then it goes. This is a wake-up call for all of us. Starts with me and everybody else. It's an opportunity. And I think, Wallahu a'lam, if Abu Uthman was to be raised from what he had seen in his grave, he would tell you, come forward, there is a paradise that you cannot stop any moment. I ask Allah Almighty to grant him paradise and all the Muslims in the world, men and women that the Quran said about them, that they are holding their oath to Allah to the last minute of their life. اللهم اغفر لنا خطأنا وجهلنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وما أنت أعلم به منا. اللهم اغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما أسررنا وما أعلنا. أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر وأنت على كل شيء قدير. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات المسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع مجيب الدعوات. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولإخواننا ولمن له حق علينا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اجعل القرآن ربيع قلوبنا ونور صدورنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم نسألك من خير ما سألك نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعباده الصالحين، ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذ منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعباده الصالحين. اللهم نسألك الجنة، اللهم نسألك الجنة، اللهم نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل، ونعوذ بك من النار، ونعوذ بك من النار، ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول وعمل. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.